Right. Now, that means, if you're in a B main and you can't run the B before the feature, those guys aren't going to transfer. I get that, but you got your feature in. Jeremy, your perspective on something like that, the history you've seen in situations like that.
Every time I can remember ever being at the racetrack, the late models always ran last. I've never been there when it hasn't.
Well, there used to be a time when there was a threat of rain or what have you.
I have seen that.
And they'd run them backwards. And I believe that was back in Claire's day.
It was. Jeremy?
Yeah, I'd agree with Brian. It's before my time
days.
as well.
Okay.
I mean, we had some some sad situation happen Saturday, which I think put a big, constraint on the time, which no one could have foreseen that happening this Saturday. So I can't really, blame them too much as far as that happened. Obviously, that was the main concern to get that figured out. So it's hard to, point fingers. I mean, could we, if we had a full race, could have made it to the front? Probably, maybe. Who knows? But
as fast as you were, it'd be hard to bet against.
Honestly, go ahead.
I said, as fast as you were, that would be hard to bet against you.
It would.
That back to the front, because that 29 car was just wicked.
I would have liked to give it a shot, that's for sure. But, I got to look at the bright side. The car's still in one piece. It's not as pretty as it was, but it's still in one piece, and we're ready to go for next week. So.
Yeah, you did turn the fastest lap in the feature. Do you know that, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen that on my laps.
It was a 15.219 in the feature. That's getting around pretty good. Yeah,
that was on that lap 13.
Yeah, well,
whichever lap 13 it is.
Well, that's the thing, because when the caution had come out on lap 13, you guys had been on the track for 32 minutes.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
We're done with a 50-lap race by then, normally. Right.
So as a driver in the cockpit, going through all those cautions and trying to get the race going and develop a rhythm, what kind of thoughts, what goes through your mind? How do you train yourself to just kind of settle down and focus? Or what's going on in the cockpit?
To be honest with you, it didn't feel like. It definitely felt kind of drawn out. I think we need to kind of step back and reassess the rules as far as every single, in the pit meeting. They're always saying, okay, in the main event you get, 3 cautions or 2 cautions, then you're black flagged, whatever, however that works. I'm pretty sure one car that held up the show for at least 5 minutes had at least 3 cautions against him. So I think they really need to get that figured out, and then that'll help to speed the program up too. I mean, I know earlier on in the street stock division, there was a car that brought out like 5 yellows, and he was still on the racetrack.
Yes, you're right.
It's just like, if we can figure out those things, which are pretty simple, they're in the rules, they're easy to, to put in force. If we can get those cracked down, we can save, 5, 10, 15, who knows how many minutes we can save if we just put the already rules in place, actually put them in place.
That's a good point, but I'll sit here in Jeremy Means' defense of all the things he has going on. That's probably not at the top of the list, so I can see how that would get overlooked. But we can help him pay more attention to that.
Either. There's other people in the flag box, I think, up there, up in the studio. I think they also keep track of that stuff.
Right, that's what I was getting ready to say.
The other thing that and I can see Brian's point on this,
totally.
where it is something Jeremy addresses in the pit meeting every week: 2 cautions in a heat, 3 in a main.
Right.
The problem with that is determining who is at fault and who brings the caution out. Is that the biggest issue, Jeremy?
It can be. I mean, there is those situations where we don't charge every car that stops with the yellow. And that's always been a Willamette thing. We don't want to start going to the absolute black and white things. We don't feel it's fair to certain drivers that get taken out. Mm-hmm. That does play a role in it as well. Right.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So, Brian, a very frustrating Saturday night for you, because I do think, all in all, you had the car to win. You had the car to beat. And if it wasn't just for 1 millisecond of bad luck to get that flat tire when you got it, I think that was your race.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think so too. But, what do you do? It's, as far as I'm concerned, there could be worse luck out there to have. So, we came back out, finished top 5 still. I wish we could have had, maybe 5 laps or 10 laps. But what do you do?
you wish you had those laps. I'll guarantee nobody else does.
I wish I did. I could have done there at 30 and been fine.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I will not argue that, because as good as that 29 car has been working even just last year, it carried over to this year. I will tell you, I do think we will see you in victory lane numerous times this year.
I hope so. I mean, we got quite a few guys. I mean, Joey's always fast. Colin's fast. Bryson's fast.
Rob Maya.
I think it'll be, honestly, yeah, of course, Rob.
Yeah.
Rob, all those guys. I mean, I guess I don't mention Rob because I think that's a granted. But, I just think, it'll be some good racing. I just hope, a lot of cars continue to show up, put on a great race. And, I mean, the late model field, we need all the support we can get as far as car count goes to try to prove that, we want to stay there.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest reason for the low car count in the late models?
Low car counts here, there. The Coos Bay thing probably put a little damper on getting a few out-of-towners to come to Lebanon.
Sure.
That we used to have. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Lebanon, Willamette Speedway is the premier racetrack on the whole entire West Coast.
Absolutely.
So, I just hope that, we can keep that going.
Well, we talked with Paul Guglielmani earlier in the program. I don't know if you heard that part, but he's talking about coming up later in the year and bringing a couple cars himself, Bobby Hogue, and maybe another car or two out of his stables, and trying to get some of the California guys to come up like we did last year. We had a couple of them show up for the Clare Cup. That is such a prestigious race in our area, and I don't understand why it's not being recognized for what it is up and down the West Coast with the California guys. We travel down there to the Bud Nationals, and I'd like to see those guys come up and take their shot at the Clare Cup against you guys on your home track.
I'd like to see it too. Honestly, I went down to San Maria and kind of got my butt kicked, and I mean, it was a new car and everything else. But it's believe it or not, how close it really is to California and here. I don't know what it is, but the dirt or something, it races completely different.
Oh yeah.
So I would definitely like to see a few of those guys come up and run with us here again.
Well, maybe we'll put up a challenge on Moxie and see if we can't get those guys up here for the
That would
Clare
be cool.
Cup and kind of call them out. We've done it before, and we're not afraid to do it again. we'll try to get that done.
Toast and a few of those guys came down last year and
Right.
play, and I think they had a good time.
Oh yeah.
They were still talking about it at Bakersfield.
Jeremy's glad Clay Daly is gone, but they had a little discussion. But like I said, that's just racing. But man, I'll tell you, I have got to give you a compliment on how well you keep your attitude in check, your emotions.
No doubt.
Because had I had a night like you did on Saturday night, I'd still be PO'd.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tire, the rough racetrack tire, just.
Yeah.
I was pretty irritated, but it's like, who do you blame? There's
Right.
no one to blame. It's just one of those things.
Things that are out of our control.
That's kind of what makes it more frustrating. It's just why did that have to happen?
Yeah,
But
I agree.
yeah. Well, man,
I'm just pretty happy that the car is as good as it is right out, to start the season, and
Heck yeah.
it doesn't seem, it's only gotten better. So I think we can continue getting better and better. Just
Right
with,
on.
Trying new stuff and new equipment that I got coming, and just it should be really cool.
Well, Ryan, we're excited to see it because, man, that 29 car is just so much fun to watch.
It is fun to watch.
You're a
We
hell
really
of a
enjoyed
driver,
it.
buddy, and I don't think anybody gets into the corner quite like you do. It is fun to watch. But
Well, I appreciate it, guys, and thank you for having me on.
absolutely,
Well, thank
thanks
you,
for coming on
Brian.
the show. And Brian, we'll see you at the track, and best of luck in 2017, bud.
All right, bud, have a good one.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
He's young.
What a gentleman.
He's young. He keeps his emotions in check. He almost reminds me a lot of Jeremy Shank.
Absolutely. I mean, you watch him drive.
Yes.
And then even when talking to him, I've never seen Brian throw a wrench. I've never seen
Right.
Jeremy Shank throw a wrench.
Right.
I've never seen Brian get hot on the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
About the only emotion I've seen out of Brian on a racetrack is when he won the late model main on his birthday.
21st birthday.
On his 21st
Yeah.
birthday, and he cut a cookie in turn 4.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But, and that's what an attitude. I mean, that's a successful attitude to carry into your racing program, because when you start racing with emotions, and he could have, easily been one of those guys that just got PO'd and come out and overdrove the car and wrecked people and wrecked his own equipment. Does nothing good.
Exactly.
That kid's got a good head on his shoulders. Keep himself in check.
I think he also realizes he's a role model for a lot of kids, and
he does have a big fan base.
A lot of these guys, actually realize that they're role models for these children coming to the track, and you got to show those kids the right way, the way to be, and he's exemplary there.
No doubt about it. Getting a lot of action here on the Swears Trucking chat line about the Hornet
quarter
incident.
to 9.
Yeah. Just talking about people being respectful, and Tabitha Prather says, it's been an eye-opener to a mother of a future big car driver. I always said my kid would never race a sprint car because of the danger. Now I see it's all a possibility no matter what class. It absolutely is.
It
absolutely. And really the difference between a sprint car and a car that a late model modified, sprint cars have a higher likelihood of ending up on their lid.
Yeah, but in the same aspect, too, where sprint cars and late models and super sports and sportsmen, those are purpose-built race cars.
And I agree
when you
with
go
you.
to street stocks and Hornets, those are not designed to be race cars. They were never designed to be a race car.
That's very true, and that's where your cage construction, your cage builder is going to definitely need to be somebody on their ball game. I mean, I was talking with a gentleman today who has an off-road Bronco, and he actually went for his Bronco. He only uses 1.5-inch DOM tubing, but he went and had it CAD designed by a structural engineer, and they pulled on that, and he said flat out, unless I roll over on my lid going 6 Gs, that thing ain't moving. And at 6 Gs, I got more problems than being on my lid.
Right. There was so many lessons. We talked about that earlier before we had the hot pit segment. So many lessons learned in this deal from your perspective on the safety crew. I'll tell you this, given the situation and the results we saw from that wreck, had Crystal not had that Hans device on, we might not be talking about Crystal in present form.
Do you want to read this on air? Or?
Yeah, is this the one we just got in?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to. This is okay.
That's 2 Moxie Media from Doug Perth.
From Doug Pirtle. Yep.
Pirtle.
He says, Tech. I was there the week before. No safety tech. Qualifying in a T-shirt and racing Hornets with half a cage. They need safety tech at Willamette. Just saying. I'm sorry. Was just upset because what I saw the week before, and asked the lineup girl who's safety tech, who was safety tech,
right.
And she said there wasn't any. Safety is so important. I'll partially sponsor 5 Zamp Z-Tech head restraints. First 5 people who would pay $300, I'll pay the rest for them to get them. I'm going to order 5, and I'll pay $59 on each one.
Right.
That right there is a hell of an offer.
That is.
If you just heard what I said, you better be touching base with Doug Pirtle.
Yep.
That's
another stand-up thing that's happening here.
That was his car.
Kudos to Doug for that.
Absolutely. That right there. I mean, if you can see my arms, I've got chills. This is what I'm talking about. The camaraderie.
You better get away from Corey. I call that chicken skin. You get away from Joel. I call that chicken skin.
Doug, that is one heck of a deal right there. And I understand. We all understand why you're upset. I mean, that's the lady in that car means something to you.
Yep.
And
we get it. We're all.
It's an emotional sport.
Absolutely.
One thing I do want to say about the wreck too is just not only thank you to Extreme and thank you to that aspect of it, was our track crowd that was there during the races, our fans, as well as the drivers and pit guys in the back, to help that situation not get any worse than it already was. Those guys did exactly everything on that track was the way it should be.
Right.
The drivers and crews did their part to help stay out of the way so we could assess the situation, as well as the fans. The fans did a great job of not all crowding up against the fans.
And see, that's something that really bothers me. That's something that you will hear me say when there's a wreck like that.
I heard you saying that right out of the gate.
And those fans that ignore that, it makes me mad, because what if they're standing there and a car goes up in flames?
Well, and here's the thing, too, is even after, and I will say this until the day I am in the ground, anytime there is a crash or a wreck or an accident on the racing surface, when we have to throw a red, there is a probability and a high possibility of a fuel cell being ruptured.
Right. Absolutely.
Or a fuel line or what have you.
Exactly. Somehow.
Oil.
Now, even though the battery in the ignition is off, when we started cutting the car, that is throwing hot metal shavings into that car, possibility of a spark,
right,
and possibility of fire. That's why every